Hi guys, hope everyone's well and welcome back to the Improvement Podcast. So in this episode I'm going to touch on enjoying the process. So something massively important which I'll get into. First of all, if you enjoy the podcast, please like, subscribe, share it on your story and feel free to leave me a rating and review. Jumping into the episode, like I said, a big part of making something sustainable is making it enjoyable. So we know progress comes from doing something long term. It's like you don't really get people where they blow up after a week of training. It comes from week in week out of consistency over time. So as a result, we should make sure our actions are in line with this, meaning our actions are in line with making sure we can stick to something long term. If you hate something, you'll definitely not be likely to maintain it. So it's good to try and make it as enjoyable as possible. Obviously, we want to like you could say that with anything. Like you could say it's more enjoyable only doing a couple sets and doing 10 because ten's harder than two. But to an extent, if we can make something enjoyable, then we should aim to do so. And the first thing I want to touch on when it comes to how to make the process enjoyable is highlighting your wins and your progressions when it comes to training in the gym. So, when we accomplish things, we get a release of dopamine. Dopamine is simply the feel good hormone. And the reason why this is valuable to be aware of is if we can highlight our accomplishments, if we can make sure we're making ourselves aware of every time we step forward, and if, let's say, we can set up methods and systems in place to allow us to see our accomplishments, and we're gonna get that sense of dopamine, the feel good hormone, and we're gonna crave more of it. Like it's addicting progressing when we, especially if we highlight it and we feel good from it, then we'll just want to keep chasing it and keep getting more and more of it. As a result, the enjoyment of the process will definitely increase. It may seem small and insignificant at the time, but it is very important to highlight the little wins. And these little wins will slowly accumulate into bigger wins and as a result help you reach your goals. And another reason why you want to focus on the little wins is because you can't change your body composition overnight. You can't build a ton of muscle in a night. Like if let's say we hate the process and we just love the outcome, then it's going to be super hard to stick to things because the outcome, yes, if let's say your outcome and your why is big enough, then you can stick to it even if you don't enjoy it, but it's going to be a lot harder to. So if you can make sure you're like patting yourself in the back for the little wins, and the little wins could be ticking your steps off that day, ticking your steps off for a whole week, getting enough sleep for that week, or it could be something as small as like drinking more water or not having a chocolate bar or instead of having two chocolate bars having one. If you are improving, highlight that to yourself and it will help massively. And this also applies to in the gym as well. So in the gym, when you progress your sets, highlight that to yourself. Tell yourself that's you building muscle. That's what I like to do myself. Like if let's say I touch a new level of weight for a new level of reps that I've never done before, then I'll tell myself new muscles being built from that. That's a novel stimulus, meaning a new stimulus, a new stress, in other words, that my body's never been exposed to. As a result, we know that's what builds muscle. So, highlighting whenever you progress your sets in the gym helps massively. And your mindset should be, oh, this is my next point. It kind of ties into the first, but my next point is your mindset focus should be dependent on what phase you're in. So, this is something else I'm implementing at the moment. So, when you shift phases in terms of like dieting phase to gaining phase or maintenance to diet or whatever, you need to shift your focus if you want to make the most of that phase. And what I mean by this is when you're dieting, you should have a different mindset to when you're bulking. So this is something I experienced as well. It's like during my contest prep when I was dieting for a show. Yes, at the start of a diet, you can definitely progress, but when you get closer and closer to stage condition, when you get a, a really low level of body fat, it's not feasible to progress your lifts by a lot at all, or at all really, towards the very end. You're going to be getting very, very little progressions out of your training. As a result, if I walked in the gym and my focus was on progressing movements and highlighting the progressions to myself and looking at the logbook, meaning like logging my sets, seeing what I'd done last week and comparing it, if that was my only focus in terms of trying to enjoy the process, then I'm not really going to enjoy it a lot. And the reason being is those progressions will be very, very hard to come by. So I'm not stepping forward, or I can't see myself stepping forward. I can't see myself improving. As a result, I'm not getting that sense of dopamine or sense of accomplishment from improving my performance because I'm dieting. So instead, what you do and what I done is I focused on the visual changes more, because when you're dieting, that's when you see the visual changes. Whereas when you're bulking, they happen at a bit of a slower rate. So I focused myself on the visual changes during that phase, and also at the late stages of the diet when I couldn't progress and I could only retain performance, that's what I focused on. Like if, let's say, I went in the gym and last week I was 175 pounds and this week I was 173 pounds, so I was 2 pounds lighter, and I retained my performance on a chest press, then I'd give myself a wee pat on the back for that. Not literally, but I'd tell myself that's me. That's like a form of progression because I've managed something the same as last week, but lighter, which is on paper more difficult. So that is a form of progression because I've lost weight and maintained performance. And I've ultimately never been able to perform that well at that body weight. So that is a win in my books. And that's what I focused on throughout prep. And that helped a lot because when you're not progressing and you're not focusing on like patting yourself in the back for things like retaining performance during prep, then your training, your quality of training, or your enjoyment of training can drop off. It did drop off a lot because you had zero energy. And also just getting through the sessions, like sometimes when I felt absolutely horrific, I didn't really feel like training at all. I already done a ton of steps. Let's say I worked a lot that day. I'd go in the gym and then I'd highlight to myself. It's like I'm managing to still like retain my performance on pretty low food. My sleep was disrupted and things like that, and I'd pat myself on the back for it once again, and that helped a lot. Again, giving you that sense of accomplishment. On the opposite side of things, when you're bulking, your focus should be on the opposite. Really, you're not going to be seeing definition really appear or get better. You might see changes in muscularity, but you're not going to see yourself getting leaner. You're going to see the opposite. You're going to, when you're bulking, you basically slowly get fluffier over time, sorry, which means you slowly put body fat on over time and start to look worse. To be honest, you need to look worse to look better at the end of the day when it comes to gaining. So your focus shouldn't be on how you're looking visually. Your focus should be on beating the logbook, meaning are you stepping forward with progressions in the gym in terms of your level of strength? And if not, that's an issue because we want to be progressing to build muscle. We want to be applying progressive overload, meaning doing something you've not been able to do before to build muscle. And also, as well as focusing on beating the logbook, you should focus on what areas like muscular. So when like I'm still posing after my sessions, for example, because like like if I can keep keep my skill of posing now, it's going to benefit me when I next step on stage. And it's not like when I start dieting, I should just start posing, if that makes sense, because like how good I am on stage next time at posing ultimately is dependent on how much I practice it now also. So yeah, instead of focusing on what areas look lean, I focused on what areas look muscular. So after competition prep and after putting on weight, your focus during prep is a lot on how you look. So seeing yourself get less lean can be quite disheartening and a bit rubbish. So when I was getting out of prep and putting on some body fat, I was looking, I was like, oh, this area doesn't look as lean. This area doesn't look as great. I can't see as much detail, which is why I'm making this episode, because that kind of spurred the idea to making an episode on this topic and like your mindset shift. But instead, what I am now focusing on is what areas look more muscular. So yes, it might be softer, but I can be like, right, my arm's looking bigger. I look wider here. My legs are looking thicker. So I'm focusing on, basically to summarize, put your focus where the progressions lie. Focusing on the opposite leaves you disheartened. So make sure you're focusing on what you will see improve. And next up, something else that, or sorry, just on the top of my head, something else that can be like something you like highlight is if you're like improving your training intensity. Like if you're training harder than before, highlight that to yourself. Tell yourself, I'm training harder than last time. And just any sort of win you can highlight it, because what harm can it ultimately do? I'm not saying be complacent and not try and improve still, but make sure you are highlighting what you are doing well. Next up, in terms of enjoying the process, straightforward as it might sound, make it enjoyable. So have less focus on what's optimal and more on what you enjoy sometimes. So if, let's say, you're struggling to stick to training, but you're following a split or like certain exercises that you absolutely hate and you're not sticking to your training program, then that training program isn't optimal for yourself. What is optimal is what you'll be able to stick to. So if that means running a bro split, meaning a single body part split, meaning like training, let's say, chest, back, then legs, then shoulders, then arms, and then like something like that, instead of doing a push pull leg split or an upper lower split, then do that. Do what you enjoy to an extent, because if the enjoyment's going to mean you're going to put in more effort, you're going to stick to your training more effectively, and you're going to be in a better headspace, then that's going to be the best split for yourself. So that is the only caveat to it. Like, even if I don't think like a chest, shoulders, like splitting your body parts up and doing, let's say, chest, then back, then legs, then arms, then shoulders. If I don't think that's optimal, if it's going to lead to better consistency, better effort, then that will probably be optimal for yourself. So as a result, this will give you better results. So this can apply to things like training split, training style, what rep ranges you work in, what rep speed you work in. Obviously, you don't want to get injured, but ultimately suit training to yourself. And this is my last point, which is suit it to your preferences. When it comes to training in the gym, make sure you're suiting it to yourself. Make it enjoyable by doing things like training at what time you like, scheduling training as best as you can to what time suits you in terms of what's enjoyable. If you hate training at a busy gym and you've got the option to train at a busy another time, then train at the other time. Obviously, as straightforward as it might seem. And also surround yourself with a good training environment. If you need to drive an extra 10 minutes to go to a better gym, if you care about your results, that 10-minute drive might be worth it if it means you're going to put more effort into your sets, you're going to enjoy training more, you're going to be able to stick to it more effectively, then suit it to you and drive to that further away gym, because you'll get more out of your training. And then next up, listening to music. Some things as simple as that, or having a wee routine of like blaring music on the way to the gym, can help in terms of get you in the mood for training. And also just wearing clothes you feel good in, because sometimes if, let's say, you're bulking and your t-shirts are fitting tight, you feel like your belly's coming out when you're doing, let's say, a shoulder press. I've had it before. Less gain in face, it's not a nice feeling. You don't feel good in it. So instead, wear clothes to the gym you feel good in, and get like a few outfits or that. Spend the money on some gym clothes to an extent. It doesn't have to be expensive, but just ones that fit well and you feel good in, you feel comfortable in. And this can help a lot in terms of just feeling comfortable in the gym, because I appreciate not everyone's at the stage where they feel super comfortable in the gym, and the gym's just like a second home for them. Like, some people don't feel great there. Some people might be relatively new to the gym, which I appreciate. So yeah, making sure you feel nice and confident by wearing clothes you feel good in, that sort of thing, can help a lot. And wearing a nice pair of shoes, ones that you enjoy training in as well. So again, it seems minute, it seems small, but these little things add up, and these little things can mount up and make a difference over time in your enjoyment. So, quick recap: make sure in the gym you're highlighting your wins and progressions. You're focusing on your mindset on where the progressions lie. Your mindset should be dependent on what phase you're in. You're doing what you can to make it enjoyable. You're tailoring training to yourself and suiting it to your preferences with what time you train, like your routine when it comes to going to the gym, what gym you go to. All those things will help make the process more enjoyable. So I hope you found this episode valuable. If you did, like I said at the start, feel free to like, share, subscribe, put on your story, and drop me a message if you did enjoy it. It means a lot. This is why I do the podcast, because I love trying to provide value to you guys, something I'm truly passionate in. So it means a lot when I do hear people like reach out and tell me they take a lot from the podcast, and it just motivates me to keep producing them. Simple as that, and makes the enjoyment of the process of producing the podcast even better. See what I've done there, tied it into the title. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed. Thank you very much for listening as always, and hope everyone has a great day, week, or weekend whenever you're listening to this.